Hello, beautiful people. I'm Elizabeth Molina. I'm a mother, a model on a mission, speaker, a certified life and health coach, as well as a licensed esthetician with a focus in post-op lymphatic drainage. I'm also trained in face gym. Many call me their beauty guru because of my curiosity, knowledge, and passion for the concept of beauty in the modern world. This is definitely the place to be if you're into bio, beauty, and life hacking and understanding the why of your beauty routine. If that's you, then you're in the right place. Are you ready for your glow up session? Welcome back to the podcast. It has been no secret that we have been going over different categories in the beauty circle, and we have experts here on the show to talk about those different categories and the way they see it. And as you know, we are all students of life, as am I, so we are always learning, and I'm always learning, and I'm hoping that you find some value in this today and you learn something new. Our guest today is Amanda Sauceda. She is a registered dietitian. She also created something called the Mindful Gut Method. And a little bit about her, she is a big pizza lover. Yes, you heard that right. She's a big pizza lover. She's also a dog mom. You know, she likes to say that she's the one that believes everyone deserves to feel like a rock star when they leave the bathroom. That's why she's passionate about helping people kick their digestion and irritable bowel problems to the curb. As a registered dietitian and gut health nutritionist, she has been helping people since 2011 address their irritable bowel syndrome, constipation, diarrhea, food sensitivities, and intolerances. She is committed to helping people get their guts and lives back on track. So guys, to further ado, welcome Amanda.
My name's Amanda. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, and the reason I became a dietitian is for one fact, and like one fact only, and that is because I love food and I love to eat. Like, that is the driving force behind what I do. I kid you not, like, it was in June, in like high school when you feel like kind of the pressure of like, okay, where are you going to apply to colleges? Like, what are you going to do for like the rest of your life? At that time, when I was trying to figure out like where I was going to go to school, people keep telling you go where they have good programs of what you're interested in. And I was like, I don't know what I'm interested in, like every other high school student. And that's when I came across becoming a dietitian. I was looking at stuff with food because I was like, okay, I'll never get tired of talking about food. Like, what is there to do with food? And that's when I discovered what a dietitian was. And I was like, sold, and haven't looked back.
Well, we thank you for that because you have a lot of great tips and cannot wait to dive in. So, what is your why for caring about your gut health and bowel movements?
So gut health actually was secondary to kind of how when I got into nutrition. Like I was saying, food was and still is like the driving force. When it started to switch to gut health, it started when I had some of my own like issues. I had some like irritable bowel type issues, and I had family members who had issues. And then the more I started talking about it, the more I realized how prevalent it was just with everybody, and no one talks about it. It's just something, people kind of silently suffer with or just silently have. The more I started getting into it, the more I realized how it connected with food. Because a lot of the times when people have gut health issues or digestive issues, they don't like always love food. And I think that became the switch of why I started diving into gut health, is because remember I said like I love food and I want everyone to love food as much as I do. And so when people have digestive issues, they don't always love food, and that became like the segue to me to go into gut health.
Amazing. And what was the first step that you took to get more serious about your gut health and bowels and bowel movements? And was it mental, physical, spiritual, emotional? Was it a mix? Like, let us know.
It's definitely all of that. And even now I feel like my perspective on gut health is still like evolving. So originally it was, I think, focused on one big area of gut. So when I think of gut health, I think of three things. I feel like there's three parts of gut health. The first part is digestion, and that's where pooping falls under, because when you look at your poop, it's a great way to see like what's going on inside your body. And so that's part of gut health, where you can spend so much time talking about that. And obviously I do, because if you just like, I spend a lot of time.
Our Instagram.
I know, just peek my Instagram and you'll find something. So that's one part, digestion. And I think another part of gut health is also looking at the microbiome. So that's all of the gut bacteria that naturally live in our large intestine. And then the third area of gut health that I don't think is talked enough about, that to me is where I'm starting to explore more of, are our gut feelings, like our inner instinct, that inner wisdom we all have, and learning to be in alignment with those feelings and listening to them. So it's more of that like spiritual part that I think is underappreciated when we talk about gut health.
I love that, because it just makes sense, right? Like, especially if you're like not having regular movements, like meaning bowel movements.
Yeah.
It's irritated, and like, how can you sense your gut feeling? How can you be more in tune with yourself when you're full of, excuse my French.
Yeah, I don't say it. I get it.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so can you draw a link between the importance of caring about your gut health and bowels with our internal and external beauty for our audience? Because I feel like they go hand in hand. You talk about it in your Instagram a lot.
Yeah.
About this connection when you start helping your clients with, their gut issues, that you see as a side effect, their skin is starting to clear up, it goes hand in hand. So let's talk a little bit more about that.
Totally. I think when you work on the gut, you get the most bang for your buck. I feel like it's the first domino in like a line of dominoes. So when you start working on your gut health, it kind of helps to improve other areas of your body, like your skin, like obviously your digestion, your energy, like how you feel and how you show up, in your day to day. I think that's so important. And when you work on the gut, like I was saying, like I'm like, okay, where do I start? Because I feel like I get like so excited about like, okay, there's so many things to talk about. And I think one good tip to help with this, and this goes back to like bowel movements, is making sure like you're pooping every day. I think so. Oh, I'm sorry. Like no one can see her, but she's drinking water, and I just said that as she was like
tea. And I was saying that I couldn't stop laughing. So, you were saying bowel movements and looking at your.
Yes. So I think you want to look, and I think even like just breaking that stigma of taking a look back at it in a different way, I think is really important. And pooping is the final phase of digestion, and it's the only phase you kind of get to see like what's happening when you look at it. And the other thing to want to do is, ideally, you want to be pooping every day. Like that's, I think, a good way to see how things are moving along. Everyone has a little bit of a different normal. But I like to think of pooping like taking out the trash. Like you want to make sure you're eliminating the waste, because when it builds up, that's when you can start to see, issues. You feel uncomfortable because you're bloated, because you're constipated. You feel low, like no one feels comfortable, like energy wise, fitting in your clothes wise. Sometimes it shows up with like skin issues when you have some constipation. So yeah.
I love that you said that, like, checking out what's coming out, like seeing, because it's kind of like a report card in a way.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And so like when I was watching your videos, I'm like, I myself talk a lot about bowel movements and how important it is, because like in the beauty industry, a lot of times people come, they're like, oh, I have this acne and I have this. And then the first thing I ask them is, first of all, hydration.
Yes.
How many bowel movements are you having? And sometimes the answer is once a week.
So uncomfortable.
And you can be like, oh my gosh, wait, so do you eat once a week? Because you should be going as much as you're putting in. Like you take out the trash, like you said. And I kind of like to think about it. Like we watch these movies where like people are investigating other people and they're sorting their trash and they're looking for like clues, like how to.
Like a private investigator, yeah.
A private investigator, yes. So I feel like when you like look at it, it's like you're investigating like what's coming out, and it sounds like more gross than what it is, but you should know, like you have charts in your your website and Instagram where you have like different kinds of trash.
Yeah, like different colors, for example. That's like an easy one, to take a look at.
You talk about your dogs can teach you how to like.
That was one of my favorite posts ever.
And they can teach you how to like go and like position themselves correctly. They get comfortable, and then they even look at you.
Exactly, you make that eye contact. No shame in their game.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. There's a lot of shame behind having a perfectly natural movement.
We all do it. We all do it.
So I love that you shared that, and like our audience can get more comfortable with having bowel movements and talking about it and knowing like, what's coming out.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm like, oh man, I wish people like learn this in like school. I feel like these are just like life skills that we should all come out knowing.
Maybe that'll be in the next curriculum to come.
Right? I actually teach at a college, and so like this is not in their textbook about poop, but I'm like, no, you guys need to know this. I even tested them on it.
What ways can you ensure to take care of your gut health and bowels in your daily life and beauty routine? And any tips and tricks for the audience? And I ask you this question because like we're still in the middle of a pandemic as we and I think this question is so crucial before I even get into the next one, because there was a shortage of toilet paper, as we know.
Yes.
And I was wondering, and like this is like a really great opportunity for me to ask this question. I think there's a high percentage of Americans who suffer from constipation, and you might be the person to answer this question for me. And so why is it that toilet paper was like nowhere to be found if everyone's so constipated?
I didn't even think of it like that, but you're right. I think I was originally, when I started getting to gut health, I was surprised, although I don't know why it's surprising, how many people are constipated, going once a week or every couple days. Here's a good rule of thumb I just want to point out, because I think this is helpful, is the rule of 3. I don't know exactly where this came from, so it's just something that's kind of in the like digestive health space. So rule of 3 is you ideally don't want to poop more than 3 times a day. Okay? That's kind of like you don't want to go more than 3. And you also definitely don't want to go more than 3 days without a bowel movement.
That makes so much sense.
So again, ideally you're kind of pooping every day, but like that 3 is a good marker. And if you find yourself exceeding the 3 days without, or 3, more than 3 bowel movements a day, that would be a good sign to speak with your doctor, work with the dietitian to figure it out. In pandemic, it definitely can have a huge impact on your gut. One big way is because of the brain-gut connection that we all have. So our brain is connected to our gut, and our gut is connected to our brain, and it's connected through something called the vagus nerve, which is kind of like a telephone pole, helps to relay messages from the brain down to the gut. But what is unique about this telephone pole is not only can it relay messages top down, so brain to gut, it can also relay messages from gut to brain, so back up. What this means to you is that how you feel mentally can affect your gut physically, and vice versa. How your gut feels physically can affect you mentally. So the one area in which the pandemic is really hitting on testing is that brain-gut connection. And so stress can have a huge impact on your gut. Stress can make people constipated.
Yeah.
Stress can also make people run to the bathroom. I'm kind of in that category. People probably didn't want to know that about my body, but like when I get stressed, I find myself like having to go to the bathroom more. That I get like that kind of like a nervous stomach.
Okay.
With all of 2020, I think ongoing stress is the sneakiest, because think about like when the pandemic first hit. You're really stressed. You don't know what's going on. People are clearing out the grocery shelves, right? It's a super stressful couple moments.
Right. We're also overeating, right? Like, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like there's
Yeah.
like a survival mode that we kind of like, I think like inherently do from like our ancestors, where we feel like we have to like just like bulk up on calories because like we don't know when we're gonna get it again.
Yeah, it's kind of like that fight or flight, that survival, like I need to bunker down and get what I can get because who knows, you know? And then you kind of get to a point where you're like, okay, this is like my new normal, right? Like this has been going on for a while. It's never going to be the same again, honestly. It's never going to be like it was.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might notice like, wow, why is my digestion feeling really weird? There's nothing new stressful that's happening. But then you think about it, like it can just be like all of this ongoing stress that's kind of now manifested. Now you're at a point where you can kind of take a step back. You're not in that survival mode per se. Mm-hmm. And so you might even see a lot of digestive issues happen now because you're just kind of been able to get out of that survival mode. Yeah. So a tip is to really work on, so much easier said than done. If I had $1 for every time I told someone to stress less, I'd be so rich. In fact, it's like part of my mindful gut method, but it's so important how, you know, and we can work on our gut by working on how we feel mentally.
You do talk about this and about stress and the gut, and sometimes you're not aware that you're stressed, but your environment is very stressful. And even though that there's not that mind and gut connection, the gut is still, like you said, like the gut also communicates to your brain. And even though you're not maybe consciously aware of it, it's stress that the gut is saying where something's happening in the environment and we don't like it, but you're not even processing that. So is that a thing, like when, I mean, in terms of like overeating or stress eating, I think forget about that, because that happens to me. I gained like, let's not talk about it, but I definitely had some gains during COVID. And it was, I realized that it was like stress eating. Like I didn't even realize that I was like putting stuff in my mouth as I was like typing and just scrolling through Instagram. I just needed to have like, I don't know, like arugula that I would never have. Like I just love these little chocolate ones or whatever. So, you know, is there like, what is your opinion on that? Because the thing is the stress that you spoke about. Yeah. Being aware of it, like you know that you're stressed, like there's homeschooling, now you're home, Zoom, like different stress, like this puts us in this fight or flight. But what is that like, what do I call it, like the sneaky stress?
It's kind of like a chronic stress, and I think it's just like the sneakiest of the type because it's funny, not funny. It's not really like funny, ha, but like you were saying, there's times where I'm stressed and I'm not even aware of the level. And sometimes, especially when you're doing Zoom or with your kids and you're handling it because you have to, right? You're handling it and you're handling it well, at least, you know, no one's hurt. You're getting the basics met. And it's not even, and you're like, okay, I got this, but you don't ever have time to like just center yourself and be calm. And I think there's two tools that I really recommend for people to help address this like mind-gut connection and to help you like check in. I think that's step one. Let's just start there, because it's like that sneaky stress, you're not even aware of it. To like try to carve out like 1 minute. It can really be just 1 minute of your day to check in with yourself and to see how you're doing. Why my 1 minute is lunch. Like lunch is like a sacred time for me because it's like I don't know, it just feels right for me. That's like the one time of the day I like try to check in to see how I'm doing. And then I also, the other thing that I've been trying to do is journaling. So I find journaling really helpful. In fact, I think journaling is very powerful, especially when someone's trying to uncover what foods could be like irritating their gut if they have that issue. So doing a food and mood journal can be really helpful. That can also be very difficult to do, to remember to write things down. The other tool I was going to mention, kind of got sidetracked a bit, is breathing. That is the first thing for me to go when I'm anxious. And I don't even realize that I'm not even breathing like well when I'm anxious until I yawn and I'm like, oh my God, that felt so good.
Wow. Yeah. That's like those are the first two things, like being mindful and taking more time and breathing. That happens all the time. Like sometimes when I'm in that state, I realize my chest, like I couldn't get a full breath of air.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, wow. Now it's like so different. You're so right. What a good tip.
Yeah, that breathing helps to stimulate the vagus nerve, which just helps kind of calm ourselves down. And there's so many different breathing techniques out there that you can do. Google breath work. I have a few in some of my Instagram posts, but yeah.
Yeah, guys, check that out. It's like amazing for a lot of information on her Instagram.
Yeah.
So with that being said, everyone expects you to be perfect as an expert in your field, and this happens to many experts in their fields.
Yeah.
Do you ever have down days where you're like off track, you're not caring for your gut health, or like, not that you're not caring, but like, life happens and you're like, it's okay, or you're not like mindfully, I guess, thinking, and obviously, your bowel regulation is off, and like, what does that look like to you, and like, how do you try to get back and stay grounded and continue to do your work?
Mm-hmm. There's definitely days where things just, I like to say, it's just not on point, right? Like, there's definitely days where things just aren't on point and the practices that I have aren't always in place. Sometimes this happens when I just get in a funk. Sometimes this happens like after vacation, or, when you're kind of in a different space. And so those things definitely happen. And this is why one of the pillars of my mindful gut method is purpose over perfection, because I think it's important to know that it's not about being perfect. Like, trying to be perfect is exhausting. And in reality, there's no such thing as a perfect gut or a perfect life or anything. It's more about why you're doing it, the intention, the purpose. So that's when I feel off, when I'm not on point. I try to go back to again, like, what are my words for the year, whether it's 2020 or now I'm going to get some new words for 2021. And there's definitely a couple practices that I like to do. The first one is hydration, because I am notorious for not drinking enough water.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, I think going back to the basics is really where it's at. When you got the basics down, like, you got a solid foundation. So sometimes I see people like, reaching for like a lot of supplements or things like that, but you can't out supplement your way out of like the foundational skills.
You can't.
Yeah. And so going back to the basics is the most powerful thing for me. So hydration is big. Another thing I like to do is, because oftentimes when I'm not on point, that means I'm not eating enough fiber, which means maybe my poops aren't ideal situation. So I like to add chia seeds into like my water or tea, just to get a little bit of easier fiber for me that I like. So water, fiber, and then really try to emphasize different vegetables. And if I haven't shopped in a while, because that can happen, when things aren't on point, you don't get time to go to the grocery store. I really try to make an effort to keep like frozen items in the freezer, so that I have like a frozen vegetable, at least I can easily like toss into something.
I love that, because people underestimate like frozen vegetables.
Yeah.
They're so good for you. I mean, obviously fresh is nice, but like frozen vegetables are super fresh as well. They actually,
Exactly.
I think they contain, I mean, you can correct me on this, they probably have more nutrients than probably the ones sitting on the shelf.
They can, they're usually picked at the peak of their ripeness.
Yeah.
And then frozen. And so just, yeah, people, and even canned, like a canned bean, like if I need a quick protein, if my food's lacking protein, canned beans are one of my go-tos.
So any other tips for us?
Okay. The other, so hydration is part of it. Keeping a frozen vegetable or canned, I think, is another really easy tip. And then another recipe that I really like, energy bites or like energy balls. I like to make those and keep them in the fridge. So if I know I haven't been on point, they're usually, the way I make them is they have like flax in them, they have oats, they have a little chocolate chip just to give it a little flavor, chocolate anything is amazing.
Yeah.
And you can easily make it with like tons of different pantry ingredients that you have, and it has like the nut butter, so I'll put like peanut butter. So it has like protein, fat, and fiber, and they're really simple to have, and at least you're getting some good stuff. So I like to do those things too.
Those are really good. I really love that. And you've made me hungry, but the show must go on.
Yeah.
What surprised you the most on being public about gut health and sharing this information to the world? What you have learned about yourself during the process, becoming an advocate for gut health. I mean, you actually post like diagrams of different types of poop, for better words, and you're not shy to talk about it, and it's like you make it so fun. Like I'm like, let's talk about poop when I watch your stuff. I'm like, I want to call someone, and then I'm like, wait, with Amanda right now, I can't talk about this too much because people are like, what's gotten into her and poop. But tell us what surprised you the most, because like it takes a lot of courage to talk about this.
I think initially, honestly, I didn't have a hard time talking about it, too hard of a time. It was weird. It was weird at the beginning. It was just like odd because no one was like really talking about it. I think the harder part for me was talking about my own issues, because then it like made it more real,
I see.
That's when that was definitely a block. Like there's a story I tell about, and then you guys can hear about it, how, again, the more about my body you probably ever wanted to know. And like when I eat too much bell pepper, like I get constipated, like telling people that was actually a big deal for me, because it just made it more real.
Yeah.
The more I talk about it, the easier it becomes. And now it's fairly easy. And I think people kind of expect it, and it makes it's just fun, because now they're like, oh, Amanda poop, like no big deal. So it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier now. And I think the reason why I like talking about it is because it helps to break the stigma around it. I also have a family history of colon cancer. And so that has always been in the back of my mind, making sure, my gut is on point, because I have my grandfather like passed away or had colon cancer.
I'm so sorry to hear.
Discussing that, if that's like the contribution I can make to help break down some of these barriers, then I'm happy about that. And I have my dog to thank for a lot of those posts. Again, the poop like a pup, no shame in their game.
One of my favorite ones is he has like the perfect squatting position.
Right?
And
there's so much.
Be comfortable, and they sniff around for their like somewhere where they would like to go.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, I'm doing it. And what's the problem? And they look at it, they sniff it, they make sure that mine, am I walk away.
Yeah.
But I love that, because I have 2 dogs, and when I saw that, I'm like, they actually do that.
Right?
Like really, they investigate themselves.
Yeah.
And they're not like Googling this.
No. And it's like, too new. And they have to always like make eye contact. Do you see what I just did? Do you see what I just did there? Like,
they're proud of it.
Yeah, they're totally proud of it. And so if this is like the one area that I can help, just bring some awareness to. But yeah, so that was the hard part. It wasn't so much talking about it. It was more so like putting my own story to it. It was a weird situation. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, now that we know about peppers.
I still eat them. I have an idea of like how much I can have because there's like a threshold for me.
Well, it's good that you know that because you don't want to pass that.
Yeah. Or do I? I don't know, because I love bell pepper. So if I do it, at least I do it consciously.
Yeah. Well, that's always good. Just knowing is already better than not.
Yeah, it totally.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. So being that you excel in the area of bowel movements in the beauty circle, like we spoke about, can you share with us a category that you may not excel in?
The one area that I am currently struggling with is sleep. That is like the area that I've been, it's been harder for me. Sometimes I'm pretty on point. Right now, that's not my on point area. Mm-hmm. And the reason being is because I think I'm not like scheduling my day. Like I am scheduling my day, but I'm like getting sidetracked with just, again, 2020 and everything going on. And then sometimes too, I find it's really important for me to have like a wind down routine, to get myself away from the screens, to kind of go through my motions, to prep my body for sleep. And when I don't do that, or when I do it, but I start it late, I don't fall asleep right away. Mm-hmm. So that wind down routine has really helped me. But is also, if I miss it, my sleep is getting thrown off.
You're not the only one in 2020.
Right?
Struggling with sleep and just like the new normal, the routines, and just like it's very hard for everyone, especially with all the screen time, the lights, and it's just like everyone. So I can promise you that our listeners right now are probably at least 90% are saying that sleep is also one of their categories that they could improve. So can you please share with us one thing that we don't know about you? And that could be like you play the ukulele, or I don't know, you collect frogs.
That's a really random one. I don't collect frogs and I don't play the ukulele, but in high school I did play golf and I was on the golf team.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
So that's a fun little fact that many people, I haven't played in a while. Again, 2020, just haven't. But I really like playing golf, and it's always just kind of fun and relaxing for me.
Lastly, I love to ask, I mean, before we might get into more conversation, but I want to definitely get this in before. Would you, share, we spoke a little bit earlier about some advice for the listeners and how to get their health in check, their gut health in check, and how to get regular bowel movements, and like your little tips and tricks on like chia seeds and water. But can you share with our listeners who may be stuck or struggling in, the situation that you were probably when you first started your gut health journey and your dietitian, can you give them some information to like help motivate them or to just get them more active? Because sometimes it can feel very lonely, very isolating. There's a lot of shame around it. Sometimes you're not even aware that, not that you're not aware, but like I've had, when I was first diagnosed with celiac, I didn't know. And I just knew that I didn't love like lots of breads or like pasta. Yeah. I just always stood away from them, and people were like, oh, you're so good at, controlling your figure. And I just like knew inherently that there was, like, I didn't feel well afterward. And then like, I remember like thinking to myself, like, am I pregnant? Like, what's happening with me? Like over, like right after the meal, like I would just get like, my stomach would get so hard and it was so painful. And I, for a long time, had no idea until someone said, do you have celiac? Like, do you need gluten-free? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, and then, so like, sometimes you're not aware. So many people are suffering with these things. Like you said yourself, and your food, we all love food. I mean, who doesn't? Yeah. And so like, you are so aware of your peppers, and they're little things that maybe don't make you feel so good, or like overeating cauliflower is a big thing, lots of gas.
Mm-hmm.
Our culture is like cauliflower rice, cauliflower pizza, cauliflower everything, cauliflower like fruit roll-ups, like cauliflower tea. So
Yeah.
great vegetable to have, but it's also like too much of anything isn't great. So my question to you is, you know, what can you, I guess, share with our listeners who are maybe in that early stage where you were when you were like 18 and you're like, I know that, you know, I love food, but there's like some connection. So like, just go for it. Like, just take our listeners into like how they can be supported in that way.
If there's one message that I hope to get across to everybody throughout my career, it's the fact that your gut is unique. Therefore, your gut-friendly foods are unique too.
Yes.
No one is going to have your same exact digestion. No one is going to have your same microbiome. No one is going to have the same life experiences that you've had that shape your gut feelings, right? All those 3 areas of what your gut is. For that reason, your gut-friendly foods are going to be unique. So what works for me might not work for you, and what works for you might not work for me. And I think there's so much power and freedom in knowing that, like, oh, if this doesn't work for me, I'm not weird. That's just me. I think sometimes we attach a label to things that might seem out of the ordinary and think of it as like a bad thing, when in reality, it's just what it is. So when you see lists sometimes are like, you have to eat these foods for your gut, and right? And then you're like, oh, but bell pepper's on that list. And like, you know, can't do that. And so I think there's just so much freedom and power in knowing that your diet is going to be unique to you. Your gut-friendly foods are going to be unique to you. With that freedom can sometimes come with frustration, because then you're like, okay, what do I eat? Like, how do I find my gut-friendly foods? And I think that is one of the driving reasons why I developed the Mindful Gut Method. It has 5 pillars to it, and it was designed to help you answer that question, to help guide you on what your gut-friendly foods are and what your gut-friendly lifestyle is. And so just recognizing that you are unique, I think, is just huge in of itself.
That couldn't be, I mean, that's probably the best advice I've ever heard, especially when it comes to gut health, just knowing that no 2 people are the same.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm seeing that a lot, especially with, you know, the age of the internet, and like there's so much information and so many people, you know, wanting to find information, but then also not wanting to do the research. So they're going to follow someone who they think has it together, and they're going to do the same thing that they're doing, but they could be causing harm to themselves because they're not listening to their body. So I think that is so amazing that you're basically giving us permission to be ourselves, which is important, because a lot of times we need to hear that. Thank you for that. And you know, speaking about that and like being young and, you know, or in our earlier days, not that we're old, but, you know, just in our teens, now that the holidays are coming up, and let's say, like, you know, your mom could be making like something with peppers in it, and you're like, you just love that dish, and like, it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, it's New Year's, I'm going to eat that because it's once a year and I never get to have it, and so I'm okay with that. And you know that you're making that decision consciously, but on the other hand, you may have family who are like not in agreement with your newfound discoveries, that you have some intolerances, or you may not be doing well with nightshades, or maybe you're gluten-free, or like you've become like a pescatarian, or you don't eat meat, or whatever. Because I've experienced that. Like, I had my gallbladder removed, so it's really hard for me to process meats. And fats, like cheeses, which I love, but it's so hard. And I remember fighting with family members, especially during holidays, you know, literally like sneaking meat in my dish
Mm-hmm.
and just thinking that they know better.
Yeah.
And I remember just like being up all night, like crying, being in the most excruciating pain because my body doesn't digest that.
Yeah.
I need enzymes. I need things to help me with my digestion. So
Yeah.
what would you say to like that person who's like in an environment where they're disregarded completely? Like they're trying to advocate for themselves and they're like, no, you're just, you know, you're on TikTok too much or Instagram or like that's not you. Like you need to have this. Like we know what's best for you. And then you're in this like position where you're like, I don't know what to do because I don't want to disappoint. There's a lot of family pressure.
Mm.
And then you have people who might sneak things into your food because they think they know what's best for you, which is horrible.
That is horrible and heartbreaking. It's really unfortunate and so sad because you paid for it. You paid for, you know, what they thought were their best intentions, and it was actually harmful for you.
Yeah.
Maybe one tip, you know, it's hard when it comes to family. Ideally, you would be able to set boundaries and say, hey, this is what's happening, and it is what it is. I don't need to hear it from you. And this is like that's it, end of story, period. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't, because then you have people that are very pushy. Another technique is, even if you're not working with a dietitian or doctor, just like hey, my dietitian said, you know, then maybe like try to push it off to like your pretend or not pretend healthcare team and saying like, this is what I have to do. And if that's like another tip. Another thing too is you can try to, especially when it comes to the holidays, bring dishes that work for you so that you know there's something there that you can still partake in and still, because at that point, food is not about eating because you're hungry. It's about the celebration. It's the meaning behind, you know, gathering with people. So if you can try to bring something to help, you know, feel like you're still part of the crowd, but also know that you're going to be okay eating this food because you made it and you brought it. So that's another thing that I can, you know, another tip that I can give. And then, you know, depending on how open or receptive other people are, I would think about trying to, you know, try to compare it to something that maybe they're familiar with and be like, hey, this is like blah, blah, blah for you. You know, this is what it feels like for me. Try to find a point of reference that might be able to connect, you know, for them to like make those connections to see about how, you know, it's not great for you. Those would definitely be my tips to kind of get people started.
Amazing. Those are amazing tips for having a successful holiday, just like, you know, planning in head. I love that you said bring a dish that you are going to partake in so that you have something to eat. That's amazing because I know that that's a struggle for a lot of people during the holidays. Food is an amazing thing that brings people together, but sometimes it can bring people apart and feelings can be hurt. So this is such an amazing tip that you gave us. So thank you so much for that. I know that our listeners are probably going to be planning what dish they're going to make for themselves. And I'm sure everyone will probably eat it all because it'll be so amazing and they're going to want to change.
Yeah.
So, you know, in the podcast, and part of the podcast is that I want to make it so that we can share with other people and like whoever is listening can give this information to their friends, to their family, to their child. So I have a teenager. She is 16 years old. And, you know, I hope that like she listens to the podcast or her friends. And I love to ask, you know, for our younger audience who want to get started, who are curious about their health, their wellness journey, their routines from like glowing inside and outside, you know, for you in particular, this question is, if you could give yourself advice when you were younger, like a teenager or in terms of it could be life or it could be related to your health, but what would that be?
Don't take things so seriously. I've always struggled with anxiety. I had a lot of anxiety in high school, and I still have anxiety. Definitely a lot more managed now. I think I just took things way too seriously, and my mind would go a mile a minute. So I would just tell myself to relax and enjoy, like savor those moments.
Another, just to piggyback off of that,
Mm-hmm.
or we just continue, is I guess where what I wanted to know a little bit more about was,
Yeah.
if you could, if there was I want to say a younger person wanting to
Mm-hmm.
explore, I obviously being in the moment is always hard when you're in the moment,
Yeah.
because then you can always look back, I wish I did that.
Yeah.
Like that's part of my, I completely, I do that all the time. Even like 2 days ago, I'm like, oh, I wish.
Right. Yeah.
So like, which I love that advice, and it's actually one of my favorite ones. It's what I say all the time as well. So we're like,
We're on a wavelength.
yeah, we're on the same wavelength here. But you spoke about anxiety a little bit, and there's a huge connection with anxiety and gut health.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, I mean, teenagers right now, students, kids in school have so much anxiety with, first of all, not being able to be in a community with peers their age, not able to, just enjoy like recess or have meals together and lunch and like, I don't know, like, barter. Like, kids always barter, like, my mom gave me this, like, let's switch.
Looks better, yeah.
Yeah, yours is better. Like, my mom is too healthy, can I have some of yours? Or vice versa.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of connection that kids and teenagers are, even proms, like, are being graduations. It's so sad and stressful and causes a lot of anxiety, not even to add on to, the image that they have to uphold with having likes and followers and comments like that is like huge. So is there something that you would say that we could, like, I don't know, share some words of wisdoms with them? Because I know that there's a gut connection with anxiety. Like, I know that for sure, and you know that for sure. So like, for our younger audience, like if you had a niece or someone that of this age and they're listening to you right now and you're like, what can I give them as a takeaway? And I know obviously, time is going to change, time heals all, right? We're going to go back to normal, some sort of normalness soon. But what would you want them to hear?
First of all, I think I'd tell them, like, I feel like I understand, but I'll never understand because I didn't, I'm not in your same shoes. I kind of get it, like mentally kind of get it, but I also don't, right? Like, I don't understand. So I want to validate that what they feel is legitimate. Again, like, just validate that their feelings are legitimate, and that even though I kind of get it, I, really don't, to an extent. And so I just would do that, like validate how they're feeling. And I would tell them to try to like find joy where they can, try to do things. I think also too, like when you're younger, you're so creative. I feel like there's so much power in that age. And sometimes it's like a really kind of an awkward age because it's just different transitions that you're going through. There's so much power that they have inside of themselves. There's so much creativity they have inside of themselves. I think being able to try to tap into that can be really helpful. I think they're telling them you're more powerful than you know. You're more creative than you know. You're more resilient than you know. Even though it doesn't always feel like it, you are. And I think I would try to reach out to them if I could and just have other people to talk to. I think that's the thing, is like the connection. Try to find joy. Try to find as many different ways to connect to people outside of like a text message. Try to Zoom or do a social distant, walk in the park, Get out of like the same four walls of your bedroom if you can. I think those would be
food.
Yeah, you do like a dinner date via Zoom with your friends. I think trying just to find different creative ways to connect, because I think connection is important across all ages, but I think even more so when you're younger.
Yeah. Thank you. That was an amazing answer. And I know that someone listening today knows of someone, if they're not going through this right now, that would benefit from this. And I promise you we'll be so happy. And you're out there, we're listening. We're here for everyone. And I'm so touched by your response, because it just like validating that answer was just so magical, because I think we forget that we have to validate someone's feelings and not, say, suck it up. And so that goes back to the anxiety and the gut, and then that can lead to other things as we get older. I just wanted to connect all of that. And like, if we have some of our young listeners listening and they can start on their gut journey earlier, they're going to have a huge, advantage in life and just live a very happy life.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that third area, right? Like staying in alignment, like, validating your how you feel, like your gut feelings. And I think when I was younger, I don't think I did a lot of that. I felt like I had to be strong. Anyways, we're getting off track. But yeah, like I think good. Knowing you're resilient, knowing that you can get through these things. And I was thinking the other day too, it's like the days are really long, but the time is going by fast. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, it's like, it's still Thursday, it's still Wednesday, but like, where did the month go? Oh my God,
Yeah. I'm still thinking it's June, honestly.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, it's cold. I'm in California. I'm like, where's my 80-degree weather? I thought it was still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing your information with us. Where can the audience find you and this amazing method that you created?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Instagram. I'm at guthealth.nutritionist. That's probably the easiest way to get a lot of information. You just have to scroll through and you can find a lot of different posts about gut health and all of those things. I also have a freebie that I'm going to be redesigning, but it's still lots of resources in there. It's a better gut health guide. You can also find that on my website, amandasauceda.com, or again, on my Instagram. Usually I have a link for it. Right now I have a link for a free class, but usually the link is in there for my gut health guide, and that is going to be redesigned very soon. So I'll have some new resources for everybody, but start with Instagram. Lots of information there.
Very cool information. Well, thank you so much for being on, and hope to have you on part 2. More about.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope that you learned something today. I sure did. And Amanda has been so generous that for this week's giveaway, she is giving away for free, when you enter the giveaway, a gut-friendly meal plan. And what that is she is offering nourishing meals with easy instructions and full of flavors. So if you're curious on how to use your pantry staples, or are you tired of asking, what should I eat every day? Do you struggle with preparing healthy meals and end up paying for it later? How much better would you feel if you ate food that actually agreed with you? So she has created this meal plan that is gut-friendly and obviously tastes amazing. And all of these recipes are really promoting healthy digestion with incorporating whole plant-based foods, fibers, and prebiotic and probiotics. And it is a 4-week meal plan, so you will have access to all of these things. So she's offering this for free. To enter the giveaway, what you have to do is answer the question on the post on Instagram after you hear this. And the question is, just put this in the comments below. What is something that we didn't know about Amanda? That is it, guys. That's all you have to do. I hope to see the winner soon. And yeah, that is it for today, guys. See you back next week.